Tag TV and Tag Radio be seen and heard by both technology users and technology producers throughout the state of Georgia and around the world. Low cost, big benefits, powerhouse online branded video and audio has arrived. Tag TV, Tag Radio, there's a lot more to know. This edition of Tech Talk is brought to you by GlobalSpeak.com, new media consultants, corporate video and audio communications, video and audio production and distribution, live and virtual event production. Tag TV and Tag Radio is a service of GlobalSpeak.com, creatively delivering powerful marketing, video, and audio solutions. The year 1975. A special education administrator at Northside High School here in Atlanta and the mother of a special needs student had heard about the then Atlanta Falcons All-Pro linebacker Tommy Nobis and his commitment to Special Olympics and persons with disabilities. By 1977, with the linebacker's support, together a project called the Tommy Nobis Center had already hired a president and CEO, Connie Kirk, incorporated and contacted the Georgia Department of Labor's Vocational Rehabilitation Program. By the 80s, the center had expanded its mission to include employment opportunities. By 92, having already moved twice, settled into a 52,000 square foot facility in Marietta, and today employs individuals with disabilities from 16 states. In 2009, Recycletronics, now known as Reworx, an electronics recycling business, was created, helping to protect the planet and create more jobs. Greetings, everyone. It's Tuesday, October 9th, 2012, and this is Tech Talk with Technology Association of Georgia President Tino Mantella. Reworx, the place for electronics recycling, Georgia born and Georgia bred. Its operation is in 150,000 square foot warehouse in Kennesaw, employs some 50 citizens with disabilities or barriers to employment, and processes 800,000 to 2 million pounds of electronics per month. Up to the Tech Talk on the right place to sell or salvage obsolete electronics? Good for green, good for the greater good, and good for Georgia. Former Director of Operations and now Sales Outreach, Joe Burum, an entrepreneur, husband, and father that makes the time to not only serve at the Nobis Rework Center, but also is actively involved in the recycling industry as a member of the Green Chamber of Commerce, active attendee at many of the Georgia Recycling Coalition conferences, and is currently working with the Keep Georgia Beautiful Foundation. Recycling your electronics instead of polluting our community, state, and country. It's not just good for business, it's good for our future. It creates clean communities and, because of Reworx, creates jobs for those who are in special needs or circumstances. Reworx, when you're ready to recycle. Why? Take a few minutes and hear Joe Burum as Tino Tech talks with just how you and your company can make a real difference for all of us.
Joe, welcome to Tech Talk today.
Thanks, Tino. It's a pleasure to be here.
So let's jump right in. And I know some of our members know the company Reworx, but not everyone. So why don't you start by telling us a little bit about your company and what you do?
I appreciate that. Reworx is a new name for a company that's been around for a while. We were formerly known as Recycletronics, but I guess first and foremost, as you know, we're a part of the Tommy Nobis Center. We're a part of a 501c3 nonprofit designed to provide work opportunities for people with disabilities and barriers to employment. Here at Reworx, we do that by recycling electronics.
So that's really a great cause. And why don't you go a little bit more into that in terms of what role do the people play in terms of helping with this business? Are they, in terms of the people with disabilities, are they involved with the actual activities in the business?
Absolutely. That's our first and foremost goal, is to provide job opportunities for people with disabilities and other barriers, and we do that through recycling, as I mentioned. But not only are we doing a good social mission and doing good for people, we're also doing good for the planet. We take our role as an electronics recycler very seriously. We're R2 certified. That's the EPA's designation for responsible recycler. We're ISO 14001 registered as well. So in addition to doing good, we do it well, we like to think. It's a really great program. We're very serious about it, and we have great support of a lot of businesses and industries in the area, and the tag group allows us to extend that to even more people.
Well, we appreciate that you're TAG Premier members and that we have a good partnership, certainly as another nonprofit organization. So you started to touch on it, but let's talk a little bit more about how you get the materials, so the electronic surplus materials that you do recycle.
Well, as you know, technology doesn't stop for anyone, and that means that there's a lot of technology that becomes obsolete practically every day. Our best sweet spot in terms of volume of material comes from large commercial government entities, institutions, school districts, and things like that, and a surprising amount from consumers themselves. One of our top customers every month is consumer donations, where people actually physically bring material here to drop off. But the best match for us is people in the technology group in particular who are doing refreshes, who are replacing some of their technology, and they want to make sure that it goes to a certified recycler. And it's a double bonus for us to be able to do that with people with disabilities and do some real good with it. It's amazing how much work can be found in recycling electronics. We do everything from refurbishing, where we'll actually clean up, wipe, erase, and securely process material and resell it, to physical destruction. We'll take things apart and take them right down to their physical elements of plastics, wires, drives, copper, metal, things like that, and recycle that all. And the great thing about being R2 certified is when we do that, we vouch for the destination of every one of those materials all the way through to its end of life. So if we send wire to someone else for further processing, they have to be certified. Anyone who handles it past them has to be certified until that item becomes a new material, as we say, to the end of life. But the great thing about us in the Atlanta area, there's so many great local corporations with what we like to think of as a local conscience and who are invested in the community. Those people want to make sure that their electronics don't end up in a landfill, that they don't end up in some third world country like we've all seen on those TV shows. And our local affiliation and our certifications make sure that that doesn't happen when people donate material to Reworx.
Is there any way for you to bring to life what kind of mass production, if you will, you do in the course of a year? I mean, how big a business is this? I know it's growing from our conversations, but what kind of work do you guys do on a daily basis?
Yeah, well, the good news is the industry is, as you point out, growing. As everyone knows, technology is invaded almost every aspect of our life, so there's quite a volume backlog of material. The downside of that is there are a lot of people who jump into this as amateurs thinking they can make a quick buck. So I tell our TAG friends and anyone listening to make sure that they look for certified recyclers. But yes, the scale is huge. Our customers, of course, are invited to come out anytime, unannounced or with an appointment, and tour our facility. We'll do, on a slow month, 500,000 pounds a month. And a big, heavy month for us can be 2 million pounds of volume through this facility right here in the greater Atlanta area.
Wow, that's great. Now, for those people listening in, companies listening in, is there any sort of a fee for them to participate in this? How does that work?
It kind of depends on the material. For people who have large volumes of fairly current materials, we can actually be a commercial bidder, or they can take a tax deduction. We're sort of like a goodwill in terms of people are eligible to take tax deductions on things they donate to us, subject to the advice, of course, of their tax consultant and their depreciation schedule. But as I say, we're also commercially competitive. So a lot of people who have material that they want to make sure goes to a good place still have to recognize some value out of it. We're happy to bid on that material as well if it has sufficient value. Some things that we handle, in particular CRT monitors, CRT TV, the cathode ray tube style, those usually have a net cost to them. Those are difficult to process, and finding good, safe locations for the byproducts is costly. But in most cases, people donate material to us, and that's what helps us provide the job. So either way, we're happy to work with them.
Well, we have time for one more question, and I think it's important to go back to the mission of your organization. And I'd like you to talk a little bit more about the people that work for your organization with disabilities, to give our listeners a sense of, the barriers they might have to employment, but then how your company works with them, because this is, like as you talk about, kind of a dual-edged opportunity, if you will. One is you're recycling and you're doing it for a reasonable cost, and you're not, sometimes people may think of nonprofits as not being as efficient or effective, but you've also referenced ISO and the kinds of things you've done to really be very strong at what you do. And that's in you're making the world a greener place, and that's all great. So that's part of the mission. But then going back, you said the key piece is providing these people jobs. So, and probably many of them that may not be able to be employed for whatever reason at other locations. So you want to...
Well, yeah, you're absolutely right, Tino. The people with disabilities and barriers to employment have the highest rate of unemployment of any strata in the measurement categories. We have people who have either not worked for a long time, or coming off substance abuse or rehab programs, or have a physical impairment that restricts their ability to work in a more commercial environment, shall we say. So we do that. In addition, we have people here from the Tommy Nobis Center who are doing work training, again, people who may not have ever had a job before, people who may be coming back off of traumatic injuries. They actually work on site at our facility as well under the Tommy Nobis arrangement. We have some great people and some great stories. It's quite moving when you get to know these people and get to know their stories and how appreciative they are for the work opportunities that they have here. We had Frank, who's a great guy, I love him, who was actually originally part of the Tommy Nobis Center early on. He finished the program, but he didn't find a job, and after a while he came back. We put him to work at Reworx, and his motivation was that he knew that if he was going to get a girlfriend, he'd have to have a job. He came here, he got a job. As many people know, Tommy Nobis runs a car donation program, and he happened to win one of the cars that we sometimes have a drawing for employees. So he got a job, he got a car, and darned if he didn't get a girlfriend, too. And if you ask him what he'd be doing if it wasn't for Tommy Nobis and Reworx, he would say, I'd still be sitting on my sister's couch.
Wow.
It's a great story. Now, he still has the job, and he still has the car. Don't know for sure about the girlfriend.
Now, I think our listeners, I'm certainly interested, people are paid to do this sort of work for you?
Absolutely. They make commercial wages. They get vacation, health insurance. These are commercially competitive jobs. These are real jobs at Reworx.
Well, that's great. So for everybody listening in, take a look at Reworx and see if there's a way that you can participate with them. Obviously, it's for a good cause. We're making the world a greener place, and then also they're putting people back to work, which is certainly one of the goals in America today. So, Joe, thanks a lot for joining me on Tech Talk today.
My pleasure. Look us up at reworxrecycling.org. Thanks, Tino.